This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead live from the Albany studio. It took me a second to spit that out, but we are now in the studio after 7 weeks up at Saratoga. It was fun to be up there. It was fun to hear the feedback from folks on the front side. Really appreciated that. But we're live from the studio. It's a little bit different, but still entertaining. Seth Merrill from Equidaily.com, Steve Bick from SiriusXM's At the Races. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. They'll be the judge if it's entertaining.
Yeah, good point.
The discerning viewer.
Good point there. But again, wrap things up at Saratoga. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up on the show. We have Steve Christ coming up a little later on from the Daily Racing Forum. Get some of his thoughts on summer racing. Also, Jeremiah Engelhardt, who had a pretty good Saratoga, a little bit under the radar maybe, but we'll talk to him. He's got some upcoming races that we can talk about as well. But as far as recaps, I want to kick things right off. We're going to skip over Saratoga discussion and go to opening weekend at Belmont because we're going to watch the race. And we have the audio here as well. Boy. We want to watch yesterday's fourth race at Belmont because a crafty claim was made. Speaking of Saratoga, a crafty claim was made up at Saratoga of Pretension back on August 9th. Who jumped in and claimed this horse out of a nice win? But Mr. Bick and DT Stables. And they came back. Had the horse entered last weekend, the closing weekend at Saratoga, scratched out of a spot that came up a little bit tough and made the nice move. Yesterday's fourth race at Saratoga. We have the audio and the complete race, I believe, here. Yeah, so we'll watch that and we'll come back and talk a little bit about it. You're going to keep your eyes on DT Stables. First off the claim, number 9 Pretension. Gary Siaka and DT Stable. Number 9 Pretension in yesterday's fourth race at Belmont. We'll be back in a second.
And they're off. Karakoram Legend broke well from the inside, but it's Pretension from an outside post who's got the early lead. Pretension in front by 2 lengths. Lay It Down runs in second. Karakoram Legend third by a head. Beeliners alongside in fourth. Length and a half to back away in fifth. M. Canot alongside in sixth. Another 2.5 to Precious Metal in seventh. Then it's Animal Style in eighth. And 4 more Tiger Willie, the early trailer, in ninth. Pretension ran the opening quarter mile at 22 4/5 seconds. Pretension has the lead. Lay It Down not far behind in second. Karakoram Legend, Beeliner continue to race as a team third and fourth. Then it's M. Canot. And on the outside is Back Away, followed by Precious Metal farther back. Tiger Willie and Animal Style. The half mile up in 45 4. Pretension with the lead as they come for the top of the stretch. Lay It Down now draws right alongside, so it's Pretension and Lay It Down heads apart into the stretch. Karakoram Legend is third. Far outside it's Back Away in fourth. Then M. Canot. Pretension is all out to hold off Lay It Down, and Pretension is prevailing. Pretension in front. M. Canot with a late run on the inside, but he's not going to get to Pretension. A front-running winner. M. Canot was second. Then Lay It Down and Precious Metal.
Nice. In the DT colors, Pretension, first off the claim. That is a crafty claim. And I pulled up, actually, lifetime past performances, and I kind of knew it in the back of my mind, the name Pretension. This is a stakes winner from going back. He'd run in the Preakness, I believe. So this is a really nice horse. But again, first off the claim, and you said while we were watching the race here in the studio, lifetime best buyer performance yesterday as well.
Career best performance by this Bluegrass Cat gelding. I've liked this horse since he was a 2-year-old. Chris Grove had him from the Mid-Atlantic region, and he used to ship up into New York for various assignments, including state-bred stakes, but he also ran in the Damon Runyon and was second there to Swag Daddy, and always kept good company. Grove had him a good long time, and then last spring he started to move around, kind of drop down a little bit, but he's always been a hard hitter. He can go long, he can go short, he can turf, he can dirt. He's just, he seemed, when he was dangled for $20,000 at Saratoga, he seemed like a very useful kind of a claim. And we had put together a group of people. I put a thing out on Twitter. I said, anybody want to claim horses at Saratoga this summer? And got a handful of responses. You know, we quickly raised like 40,000, and so we grabbed him for 20. And he's a little bit of a difficult horse in the mornings. He's a little bit diffident and doesn't necessarily train, automatically. You gotta work with him and around his personality. But sound and a good-looking horse, good feeling horse too. I mean, he's just a happy horse. And this was, really the kind of thing you do this for, Seth. You take him for what you think is a reasonable price. You run him in a spot that you think they can win. And as it happens, Gary Contessa and Steve Sigler from Winning Move took him right back. They paid an extra $5,000 to have him, and he'll go on. This was one of those perfect scenarios. You get the pot, you get a little bit more money than you laid out for him, and everybody's happy. They get a picture, and a good way to start the Belmont meet. And I do have to say, I couldn't help, we started a horse yesterday too, on Friday. We started the filly, Lemon and Honey, who's going to take a little bit more finagling, a little more work. But it was fun to go to the owner's standings on the Belmont webpage.
Oh.
and there you are, sitting fourth ahead of Stu Janney. Kind of a neat feeling to see yourself, to see yourself sitting fourth among the winners. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about
but thanks
that.
a lot. I'm glad. Thanks for playing that. It was the one regret is we couldn't get down. We couldn't go down there. Other than that, but $20 plus mutual, and it was perfect. Louis Saez with a great ride, and happy for Gary and for Paul Barone and everybody at Barn 60 who does such a great job.
Yeah, a crafty claim,
Thank
no
you.
question about it. All right, before we do an overview of Saratoga and whatnot, why don't we talk about a couple of races that we didn't get a chance to see because they happened after we were on the air last week. First, we'll take a look at the stretch run of the Spinaway. That, of course, was Tom Durkin's last call. I'm sure everybody has seen this by now, heard the last call. Really nice ceremony afterwards. But it was Commando getting it done for Rudy Rodriguez in the second career start. A big winner in a maiden claiming race in the career debut. Came back and validated that, as we'll see the stretch run here, with a big win in the Grade 1 Spinaway. It was over a sloppy track, obviously, as you can see. So that may be a cause for concern. We'll see what this horse does next time out. But I still think the way she did it, this is going to be certainly a 2-year-old filly to keep her eyes on, at least for the rest of the year.
No, this is a serious performance, and she looks like a real horse. Joe Bravo got off, and Joe was shaking his head, and he said, as he came off the wet tundra there, he said, "Boy, nice filly." And hey, that's the beauty of what Michael Dubb and his partners do. They ran that filly for $75,000. They wanted her to win first out. They got a good performance, better than even expected, and then she comes back and gets this advantageous circumstance. Whether it was a wet track, you could see she has that action where they just flip, got those little deer feet, and obviously loved the slop, but takes advantage in a Grade 1 win. And Michael Dubb, you got to say. Michael Dubb, Mike Caruso, Bethlehem Stables, and whether it was with Gary Asquith or with Elkstone Group or any of the other partners that Caruso and Dubb team up with, what a job. I mean, they're just aggressive. Dubb spots the horses where they can win. It doesn't mess around. If there's one that is not performing up to expectation, boom, they drop it in. They get the win. They get it claimed. They don't... they're not going to run horses over their head and not win. And I admire it. And then this one gets him a grade 1. Quite something. Rudy Rodriguez's first-time starters and babies at this meet were really exceptional. And that's something that Rudy, when he first started training, he wasn't having success with young horses, with new babies. Now, a couple of, 3-4 years down the road, he's gotten better and better. He and his brother fine-tuning their ability to get a horse ready. And that was very notable, I thought, this summer, how well his horses ran right off the first-time starts.
Disappointment in the race, obviously, 8-5 favorite Angela Renee coming out of the second-place finish in the Adirondack in her second career start, well beaten third.
But you can't, and had this conversation going back to Travers Weekend at Personal Ensign with Ed Stanko, who was so distraught when Princess of Silmar didn't run. These wet tracks, you can't get down on any horse because, and the mud at Saratoga, any horseman will tell you, the mud at Saratoga is not like the mud downstate or anywhere else. And horses take a few jumps and they shut it down. They don't like it. So you never can get panicky. And as it turned out with Princess of Silmar, it turned out she was having the thumps. And so a very viable excuse to write off that performance. And she only got beat a handful of lengths. Closed Hatches, there's another example. Closed Hatches absolutely, freaks on that wet track. And Berry's horses, that she had only beaten barely 6 weeks earlier, 8 weeks earlier. So wet tracks, always a proviso.
Yeah, no question about it. Win or lose,
yeah,
one
absolutely.
way or the other. Also, this past weekend, holiday weekend, it was Monday actually, but it was the Grade 1 hopeful.
Feels like a year ago.
Two-year-olds going 7 furlongs, and Todd Pletcher's Competitive Edge, who impressed so many people at the beginning of the meet back on July 26th with a big win, follows that up and validates with a nice win in the hopeful as well. I Spent It for Tony Dutrow, who won the Saratoga Special in his second career start and came back to take on the foes in the hopeful. Will run second. So pretty nice performance from both of them. I thought McQuaid, who to me is a nice horse that George Weaver trained to a debut win. I thought the 4th place finish there, stepping up against this kind, was a decent effort. I want to see what that one does next time out. But certainly Competitive Edge validated that career debut.
No, there's no doubt. And you did kind of wonder. I tried to work with I Spent It, knowing that he was going to be a better price, and kind of thinking maybe Competitive Edge, would react a little bit and regress off that big debut, but no such luck. This was a big performance, and after it's interesting, Seth. After the middle portion of the meet, where Todd Pletcher went on that 0 for 23. Whatever it was, there was a portion where Pletcher's horses did not run well, weeks like 3, 4, and then finished with a little bit of a better flourish at the end of the meet. And they, for the most part, started to run a little better down the stretch, including that 2 weeks off that was pretty impressive as well. That was another 2-year-old. There were no shortage of those performances, but we'll see. The 2-year-old environment seems pretty strong. A lot of high 80s and low 90 buyers on both coasts as well. The Del Mar Futurity winner and so forth. There's been some notable 2-year-olds. I mean, that Baffert Futurity winner for Zayat was American Pharaoh. 95 buyer in that performance. So it looks like the 2-year-olds are okay, and that includes those 2-year-olds on turf. I kept saying all week, you and I talked about it. I thought that Startup Nation performance on the grass, it was one of the best 2-year-old efforts on turf or dirt all summer so far. So I think we're looking at a good crop.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Speaking of Pletcher and kind of the lull, that made things interesting as far as the trainer's title. All of the titles, trainers, jockeys, and owners were exciting all season long. It looked like Pletcher was going to run away with it. As you said, he had a little bit of a lull. He wound up kind of getting things back together and holding off Chad Brown. Things got exciting there in the last week, but it was Todd Pletcher with 28 wins. Chad Brown runs second with 23 victories. On the jockey side, again, Iraut Ortiz made it exciting the last few days, but it was Javier Castellano 58-53. And as we mentioned earlier, Mike Dubb wins the owner's title with 14 wins. Rapoli has 12. And we talked about it plenty earlier. Ken Ramsey and what was the story of the meet, perhaps on the owner side, Chester and Mary Broman tied for third with 11 wins. But all of those races got a little bit exciting or had some interesting storylines like the Bromans.
Well, and not just the Bromans. I mean, how about the Leblongs? How about Alex and Susan? Was it Susan? Alex and Joanne? I forget. Alex Leblong and his wife. And there was also Mrs. Generazio. I mean, which was amazing. Generazio's horses that were running from either Jimmy Ryerson or from Chris Clement. It was amazing. The Bromans you talk about, I think every trainer that they have horses with won at least one, right? Rodrigo Ubillo, Kimmel, of course, Artemis Agritera with Hushin. I'm forgetting who else. Jimmy Jerkins. Virtually every trainer that Bromans work with won a race. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
for the number of starters, what they have, 28 starters?
Yeah,
29?
It was an incredible performance. Again, one
Tremendous.
of the stories of the meet. And during Saratoga, we are Saratoga-centric, certainly, but just stepping back a little bit and looking, the past week also was the wrap-up of the Del Mar meet. The Del Mar leading jockey Rafael Bejarano, 42 wins over Kent DeSormo with 32. Jerry Hollendorfer and Peter Miller tie with 20 wins apiece on the trainer's side. Sadler second or third with 17. But to me, the story there, the resurgence of Kent DeSormo with the move back out to Southern California.
It was the best story of the summer anywhere. I mean, Bejarano was coming back from an injury, and he got crazy hot down the stretch. But including 10 wins? You'd have 10 wins over 2 days, 4 and 6. But the Kent DeSormo story, for whatever reason, people love to beat up on Kent and try to, ridicule him. I don't get it. If you have any time around him, he's just eminently likable and really harmless. The abilities that he displayed this meet, it just shows you why he's in the Hall of Fame and why he was able to, at a young age, get the kind of wins that he amassed. And it's great. And if he can keep the drinking in check, I mean, there's no reason to beat around this. I mean, if he can keep his drinking managed because he refuses to up and quit or go for treatment. If you didn't read the Marty McGee story that won an Eclipse Award last year, it really tells the details. And Kent, in the meantime, is plying the trade and has rebooted his career, and good for him.
Yeah, he tried it at Chicago. That didn't work out, and then out to Southern California, and did get the reboot and seems to be on his way now, so we'll see how things work out going forward. Also worth mentioning, running fourth there in the jockey title, Mike Smith, 22%.
Well,
I mean, he's kind of picking his spots and
amazing.
Really
There's two. As we go to the break, Jeremiah Engelhardt is going to join us. He had a spectacular Saratoga because he came into the meet over the Spa, and he dispatched with that right away. We're going to watch some races for Jeremiah. But in terms of young riders, there were two stories on both coasts: Manny Franco at Saratoga and Drayden Van Dyke. The two of them are just the future. Manny Franco, for those that weren't paying attention, absolutely shouldered his way right in with the Ortiz brothers as a young rider with great skill, particularly on the grass. And I mean, when you're going to compare him to Jose Ortiz, for instance, Manny Franco is a much more accomplished turf rider right now than Jose Ortiz is.
And didn't he have 4 yesterday?
Yeah, another 4 yesterday. Ortiz is coming out with a lot of momentum, and this kid, I loved the way he rode at Saratoga. He's got a real feel on the turf in particular.
Yeah, and Drayden Van Dyke, been watching since
terrific.
the wintertime. Because he would bounce on off days down to Turf Paradise, and on our Mondays and Tuesdays when we looked at Turf Paradise, looking at him as well.
Well, Tom Proctor, for those of you that don't know the backstory, Proctor is basically looking after him. Tragically, Van Dyke's father committed suicide beginning of last month. But Proctor has been sort of mentoring the kid, and that includes things like cleaning stalls. I mean, he is getting sort of the same upbringing that Rich Migliore got working for the DeMoros, and that's what's going on with and Proctor is on this kid like white on rice and is making sure that he's going to get the right education coming up as a rider. He's going to be Tom Proctor was here for Travers to saddle Myositis Dan in the King's Bishop. Proctor said to me the kid is going to be a absolute mammoth star. He thinks the kid has just got unlimited potential, and if Proctor says it, I believe it.
Will he send him on a train with a horse without lunch?
It's the greatest story. It's the greatest story
Or a banana
in racing history.
was like a sirloin steak.
It's the best.
All right, we will head to our break here. When we come back, Jeremiah Engelhardt. A little later on, Steve Chris. Stay tuned.
Go Zephyr kicking clear, and Go Zephyr is pulling away impressively.
Hysterical Lady, Ginger Punch to win it.
And it's Wilco in front, and he's going to pull off a huge upset here.
But it's Round Pond going on to take the distaff.
Awesome again. Sire of 10 Grade 1 winners, 4 Breeders' Cup champions, and 4 multimillionaires, standing at Adena Springs.
But here comes Ide with a final try. Who will win the Travers? It will be Too Close to Call. Ide surging after Wicked Strong.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what can be better than that? How about 2 Stadium Cafes? There's also the Westside Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not 1, but 2. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTV.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTV.com. Log on today.
We're back on Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning, and still, of course, in the wake of the Saratoga season. And the Saratoga season started with a bang for our first guest this morning, Jeremiah Engelhardt. A very much heralded statistic coming into the season that Maya was looking for his first Saratoga win. And boy, Jeremiah, you didn't waste any time, did you?
First race, opening day, it didn't get any better than that.
We love it. There's a picture of Jeremiah, and we're going to watch Winter Games' win. This was the first race of the season at Saratoga, and the smile on your face in that winner's circle, getting this monkey off the back. Talk about all the years of starters and kind of growing up around the game and the way Saratoga loomed on the basically for your career.
Well, I mean, the last 2 years were my first 2 years stabled there, and we never had a winner, and we shipped in there countless amounts of times and never got it done. So having the first horse, and I really wasn't expecting a good meet this meet. I thought some of the horses were kind of on a down slope as far as from a racing standpoint coming in. And to a pleasant surprise, we ended up having 5 winners and got the opening day started off right, so it took the pressure off with the rest of the meet.
Well, and we're watching here as Winter Games takes control early and basically just has his way with the field. This is a 25 non-winner, a 2. And gosh, I mean, from a breeding standpoint, this horse was always cut out to be a nice one as an AP Indy son. And he takes him all the way around here going a mile and an eighth.
Yeah, I got to actually, Jose Ortiz was the difference maker in that race. I wanted to take him off the pace and make one run. And I could tell when I said that to him, it kind of like the air came out of the balloon when I said that to him, and he goes, "Oh." And I said, and we hung up, and he was kind of going to stick to my game plan, but I got thinking about it for a couple minutes, and I sent him a text back. I said, "Listen, just do whatever you want to do." And so he reversed, and he did what he wanted to do, and he thought that he could be on the lead, and he took advantage of it. So I owed that to Jose. Smart ride.
Well, and the thing about this is you get dueled into the turn and then get headed, and in fact passed, and now you engage with another horse comes and yet wins the photograph. I mean, this was a really game effort, and frankly, it was a roaring start to the meet, and kind of set the tone, Jeremiah, for a lot of what came the next 39 days, because there was one photograph after another, and when this one went your way, you had to think that maybe maybe the luck had come back around.
Yeah, well, I was might have started back in November, like the second day of November, when I had some of the luck come my way when I got put up in a certain DQ. But yeah, no, it was definitely especially when I saw the horse switch from his right lead back to his left lead. I'm like, oh boy, he's going to be second. But when he switched, he actually kicked down a little bit when he got back to that lead. So it worked out well.
Well, this was, of course, a claimer in Shankopotamus, 25 claim a couple of days later, but that was not the only level. It was not just claimers that you were winning with, because a couple of really nice allowance wins that are the kind that you hang your hat on at Saratoga and impresses potential new clients. And we're going to watch Summerdale in a terrific turf sprint coming up next on the video. Talk about this one.
Well, she was a filly I've always kind of liked, from the first time she won in her first start. She never really ran back to that race, but we had some trouble getting her to settle. And I thought Manny did a really nice job getting her to relax. And he navigated. I mean, he couldn't have asked for a perfect setup. He got her onto the fence. He had 2 or 3 horses that went out with early speed, and she closed into a fast pace, and it worked out really well.
We're going to watch here, and Summerdale is going to be rallying, starting to move into the turn. And you also, for those that sometimes put down a bet, couldn't have been too unhappy with the nearly 30-to-1 price. Yeah,
it seemed to be I was a lot better with the long shots than I was the favorites this week, though.
Well, and it's funny, we just finished, before you joined us, Seth and I were kind of recapping Del Mar and Saratoga, and I made the point about Drayden Van Dyke on the West Coast and Manny Franco in New York. And Jeremiah, to me, this kid is absolutely on the ascent, and people, especially on the grass, I think his feel on the turf is tremendous.
I agree. Manny's a great athlete. I mean, for his size, especially, he's a very good basketball player, and he's quick. I mean, a lot of guys that you see that are athletic like that, when they get on an animal, it's the same thing. They got great balance. He's got great court awareness. I mean, when he gets some of these bigger mounts in some of the bigger outfits, he's going to have a real nice future.
Well, got to also bring up, we don't have the video, but just the other day when we were getting ready to close out the season at Saratoga, when I handicapped that state bred allowance race, the route race, the teacups certainly looked like there was potential for her moving forward. And I read Mike Welsh didn't like the way she had worked coming into the race, and so I sort of backed off. And then I watched with, not disgust, because I was happy for you, but I certainly wasn't. I certainly was kicking myself, because the teacups made a lot of sense, and then she ran great in here, and it looks like she's got plenty of upside yet.
Yeah, I mean, she had one angle that in working around New York breds that I really liked. The first time you get a New York bred to run against New York breds. I mean, didn't matter what she was running against. She's been running against Open Company for however many starts she had. And this was her first start against the state breds, and that's always a big, big factor. I mean, the first time they get against the New York breds from running against Open Company is a big deal to me.
Well, you have a spectacular Saratoga, and it's got to feel great. They'll come up here and win 5 races and really be among the top 20, 25 in terms of the training outfits, and certainly much bigger outfits and more heralded and kinds of horses they get. I mean, this is really the kind of meet, Jeremiah, between this and the Breeders' Cup. It's got to be the kinds of things that help you grow momentum as an outfit.
Yeah, I mean, from our team standpoint, we, with Elizabeth Dobles in charge of my New York outfit and my Uncle Steve in charge of the Finger Lakes outfit, really have a really good team, and I can kind of hang my hat on the operation that we're running right now, and I think, the clients seem to be very pleased, and we picked up some new clients and some potentially some nice babies, and hopefully we can keep this rolling. But a lot of people put in a lot of hard work, and it's really starting to show. And
Jeremiah, just curious, talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of that. You're out there at Finger Lakes with a string and in New York. What's a week like for Jeremiah Engelhardt? How do you bounce between the 2 venues?
That's a good question, Seth. I start on usually Monday at Finger Lakes. I'm at Finger Lakes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, and sometimes Thursday morning. And then when I get back to Belmont, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes Monday. I'm at every place. I'm at both places once a week, and sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 days, or however many times I have to be there. Sometimes it's one day, just to go see one day of training if everything's going well. But in this business, anything can happen at any moment. So I have my own routine, and I actually couldn't do it without my wife. We have 4 kids, ages 4 and under, and she never says anything to me as far as when I have to go or where I'm going to be. It's never can you watch the kids tonight or anything like that. It's they could be screaming at the dinner table with mac and cheese all over their face and hot dogs flying around the room, and I got to run back to the barn, and it never says anything to me.
It's funny you bring that up, because I went on your Twitter feed this morning and I pulled up a picture, and I think the guys have it, that you mounted maybe a couple of weeks ago. It's you on a couch with what looks like 4 or 5 kids all over you, and I have to think, boy, going to the track is probably time off for you.
A lot of people ask me, like, why, how do I do that drive every week? And it's actually a little quiet, and it's for some much needed quiet time for me.
So these are all your kids then?
Yeah. Raylan's my oldest; she's 4. Then we have twins, CJ and Anna, and my youngest Eli just turned 1.
That's great, absolutely. And just on the nuts and bolts again, do you keep horses at Saratoga during the off season until the training closes here?
No, we just go back to Belmont. So I have Belmont and Finger Lakes, and it seems like if I'm in 2 different places, it seems to work just fine. Sometimes I spread myself a little thin, and kind of the things that I want to do if I'm at one more spot. So we keep it just Belmont and Finger Lakes.
Sure.
Jeremiah, we got to talk about the 2 starters today, and of course you're already off to a good start at Belmont. Let's talk about today's stake, the Sky Beauty, one of the 2 on the card. Manny Franco aboard Tahoe Tigris. She's cleared allowance condition, and she's certainly been competitive among state-bred stakes types. What can put her over the top? We're going to watch her allowance win from Belmont back in June.
Well, she was a filly in her last start. It was kind of a real head-scratcher to me. She was training so good up in Saratoga. Jose said, she wasn't the same horse, never really grabbed hold of the bridle. We scoped her after the race, everything was clean. The only thing I could think of is just the way the track was. It was kind of a heavy, thick, harrowed mud, and I just feel like she just didn't want to get over that track very well. And, I'm hoping today, things will be a little bit different. I mean, she loves Belmont. I think she's 5 out of 7 at Belmont, and but this is a tough little race. You have a couple fillies in there that are running numbers that are just a touch lower than hers, but I think if she fires her race, she could be right there.
Well, and of course, as those of you are watching here, and Tahoe Tigris is going to rally, she's going to, among the horses she's going to rally past, is Miss Bessie Lou, the 2 that right now is sitting 4th. And of course, Miss Bessie Lou would go on later this summer and place in the Alabama. So it's not as if Tahoe Tigris hasn't been keeping good company.
No, I thought that was a key race for her, that 2 ran, especially in way some of the horses have run coming out of it. So, I'm hoping that she can, getting back to Belmont today, she's going to get back to her old form, and she doesn't have to improve much. If you draw a line through that last race of hers at Saratoga, she doesn't have to improve much to win today, and it'd be a real nice victory for her.
Well, and we're just watching the move she made on the turn. I mean, she passes 4 horses in 6 jumps.
Yeah, she's got a nice. When she gets going, she's one of those fillies that you kind of want to let keep rolling. And when she stops and starts, she's not as quick coming out of that first stop. So you Jose always does a pretty nice job of navigating the right trip for her. And that's the one thing, we told Manny. Manny's been on her once before in a race where I knew fitness was going to come into play. And that was the big thing, Jose being on days right now, getting someone on her that knows her and is confident in her.
Well, and of course, Jose taking advantage of the days to go on a island vacation.
Yeah, actually, him and I both. I'm actually in the Adirondacks right now with my family and
nice
brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So.
We love it. Well, one last question and one last horse to talk about. Sky Fortune debuts in a very good nightcap later on. The 10th race today. Edgar's going to ride, and this horse has got an interesting backstory because your father claimed the dam off of the Ramseys, and this was a very clever claim, and people might look at her record, and that dam is Democrat Taxes, who happens to be a full sister to Talking Treasure, who was a 5-time stake winner, and so this was one of those claims of a filly that had residual value and mare potential, and it turns out it may be something here with this baby, Sky Fortune.
Well, we're hoping. I think she's going to be one that probably wants to go a little bit further. I've always had better success, starting my 2-year-olds out and letting them have a sprint first, and if they want to stretch, kind of let them do that themselves. She's been working in company probably 4 or 5 times against the filly that ran pretty well the other day. Got beat 3.5 lengths in an open maiden special weight, going 6 furlongs. Lana's Fortune. So, we're hoping, I believe that she's going to be more turf, and I think she'll be a little bit further as well, but hopefully she gives a good account for herself today, and it's a good stepping stone for her career.
Well, and a good stepping stone for Jeremiah Engelhardt's career. The Breeders' Cup win, the juvenile fillies back at Santa Anita last November, and continued good success and performance, and then the big Saratoga. Jeremiah, enjoy the time off. Thanks so much for joining us.
Steve, Seth, thank you very much.
Always fun. Maya Engelhardt. And we're going to take a break. Come right back. Spend the rest of the morning with Steve Christ. We'll talk Saratoga. We'll talk the future. We'll talk July and August and
just see how he's doing.
8 weeks. He seems to be doing good because, boy, he was dancing with those fingers on the keyboard all of Saratoga, and it feels like Steve Christ is rounding into form, fit and ready. He joins us next on Loose on the Lead. Stay with us.
I don't know. You hang around here. What do you think?
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Belmont Bet Fest on October 4th. So sign up today, online at capitalotb.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
I didn't want to get just any degree after high school.
Horse racing has always been my passion.
I was already a lawyer.
When I was young, my dad took me to the races. The sound of the crowd. I still remember.
I'm 40, and I don't want to stay in a career I don't love.
I want to follow my passion.
Follow your passion at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
All right, you can take it.
We're back on Loose on the Lead. We come stumbling out of the gate. Steve Christ is going to join us as soon as we raise him on the phone.
Well, one of the news items we didn't mention at the top, but worth mentioning, Palace Malice retired.
Yeah, and you know what? Didn't you sniff that one
Well,
coming out of the Whitney? You could really sense that was on its way, right? I mean, just inexplicably bad performance, and although the way Cott Campbell talked about it, because Cott is talking about selling either as immediately as a stallion next spring, or potentially, if somebody said to him, let's let him rest 60 days, because it's a bone bruise, and bone bruising's a difficult deal because you have to let it completely heal. If you try to bring a horse back from a bone bruise too quickly, you'll throw another 60 days at it. So this is one of those rest kind of things. This is something really similar to Smarty Jones that derailed his career. Cott Campbell said he wouldn't mind if the suitor was to go the other direction and let him rest and come back next year for a 5-year-old season. But we'll see. Chances are he'll head right to the shed, considering that he's a son of Curlin, and as good as Curlin is doing as a stallion, you would think that whoever is going to make the move.
And a little before that, it was also announced the Big Beast goes to the sidelines for a little bit.
Yeah, it's too bad. He's got a little surgery, right? He's got the little chip that's got to come out. There's been a few of those little 60, 75 day surgeries. We haven't mentioned the Juan Vasquez tragedy from the other morning, and this was so sad. Veteran exercise rider and a guy that had trained some of his own horses, has worked for almost everybody over the years in New York, was really well liked, and it's just one of those things, working a 2-year-old and reacts to the stick and veers into the fence and sends Vasquez over the fence. So hearts go out to the Vasquez family and everybody, friends and family. It's a dangerous job. Happy to turn the page and welcome in Steve Christ here at the end of the Saratoga season. Steve, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
It almost felt incomplete because we didn't have you at Saratoga, but gosh, the keyboard must still be kind of smoldering because you were certainly flying with the fingers and active all month long, 6 weeks, talking about everything that was happening at Saratoga. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, and it was a little weird to cover the meeting without actually ever being there, but we do live in an age of in-home television and wagering, so I went at it from that point of view and thoroughly enjoyed it. The only thing that would have been better was being there, but maybe next year.
Well, and you certainly finished, I thought, with a flourish. You had the 2 pick-6 hits, right, at a pair of sixes near the end of the meet, that $7,000 pick-6 on the carryover day.
Yeah, well, it's always twice as much fun when you do it in public that way, and people root along or root against with you, whichever they prefer. It took me a while to get my feet under me at the meeting. You got to do your homework from Belmont Spring, or the first couple of weeks of your Saratoga are going to be a little bit rough.
Well, you talk about rooting against, and it certainly seems from a media standpoint, we get a lot of rooting against the association and against anything good that comes out of the Saratoga season or any other season. You summarized things, Steve, the other day with Spa had quality over quantity. You had a lot of, I thought, positive feelings coming out of the meet. Talk about your impressions.
Well, I think at the end of the day, much less 50 years from now, the only thing that matters about a Saratoga meeting. It's not the attendance or the behavior of the executives, but all that matters is the racing. And I thought the racing was very good this year. I mean, not just the stakes racing, which is almost always very good. I mean, with 33 stakes, 15 grade ones, it's hard not to have a quality meeting. But when I say quality, I'm really just as much talking about the daily cards. In the last couple of years, Saratoga cards had gotten to the point where, last summer, there was one day where they ran 4 N2L condition claimers in a row. And, it was feeling like Aqueduct in February on some weekdays up there. I'm a big Martin Panza fan. I think he's done a lot of good things for the racing program. And you just look at the daily cards up there this year. There were more allowance races and clean allowance races, not optional claimers. There were open claiming races, just 25,000 claiming, 50,000 claiming. Races we'd been told for years they couldn't fill anymore, because of competition from neighboring states. Guess what? You can still fill them. So I just found the, daily handicapping experience a lot more pleasurable with better racing. Oh, and I just want to mention the long-distance racing. I mean, I know it's goofy sometimes having 1 3/4 and 2 mile races, but I find it very refreshing, and I hope we see even more of it.
Well, and even just 1 1/8 on the dirt, Steve, there were over 40 scheduled 1 1/8 dirt races during the course of the meet, and another 10 that were races that had come off the turf and that were run at 1 1/8. And so that's over 50 1 1/8. I don't ever remember in recent time that many classic 9 furlong type races, and I found them on a daily basis very difficult to handicap. And not only, of course, because you've got jockeys that come out of the gate and look at each other and grab up, but I thought that was very notable to have that many 9 furlong events.
Yeah, and it really improves the overall experience. To have that kind of variety, to have elements of handicapping, horses stretching out, horses turning back. When you have a card that, is 90% 5.5 and 6 furlong races, it can get a little tedious and not really feel like Saratoga.
Steve, Seth Merrow here, and I just want to go back to the last weekend and get your thoughts on Tom Durkin. You're a guy who's obviously watched New York racing a lot over the years, and over the past couple of weeks we've gotten the thoughts and opinions on Tom Durkin from a lot of voices. I'd like to hear your thoughts on Durkin and his retirement. Durkin overall and the retirement ceremony on Sunday, which I thought was really great.
Yeah, I mean, I go back with Tom, more than 30 years. I still remember when, he was this unknown who turned up at Hialeah one winter, and it was just like, wow, where has this guy been? I guess the answer was Fairmount Park. But, Tom was just a revelation as an announcer. And, I think most people think of him in his later years for his, funny or dramatic or loud calls, all of which are wonderfully entertaining. But, what I think Tom might be a little underappreciated for was just his expertise in calling a race, by which I mean seeing horses beginning to make moves very early in the race. Tom was really surprised by a horse suddenly appearing on the scene. And, that's the most you can ask for as a race goer, is not only to be entertained, but to have a guy telling you that somebody in 7th place is really beginning to move nicely now, telling you things like that. And, I was a little afraid, the second part of your question was about the retirement ceremonies, that, it was going to be overdone or that, Tom might end up, being upset by it. But, I mean, that was one of the few, farewells or public ceremonies that I thought was just about flawless. I mean, I just thought Naira did a really good job with it. Tom couldn't have been better. And, what other racetrack, promotion or ceremony has just ever been so universally loved? I mean, everybody was happy with it. Everybody was in a good mood after it.
Steve, to talk about some of the things that you were interspersing your wagering with over the course of the summer, we never had a chance during mid-August to talk about the roundtable, but you addressed, with a pair of columns, you addressed the sudden resurgence of a Lasix debate, as well as what came out of the roundtable, and I'd like to revisit it here.
Sure. I hate to be critical of the Jockey Club because we all know their hearts are in the right place, and these are, people who are trying to improve horse racing and feel very passionately about it. Having said that, I don't understand their lost crusade against Lasix. I get that in some perfect utopian world where horses didn't bleed, yes, it would be better to have no medication. But we live in a real world. And I just think Lasix is one of those, or has become one of those, who cares issues. I think that people who are violently opposed to it are just spending way too much time and effort on a lost mission. These individual states, New York, Kentucky, California, where most of the good racing takes place, they're not going to ban Lasix. So, for the Jockey Club to keep fulminating about it, and getting up once a year and saying, if you don't go along with us on Lasix, we're going to call in the feds and have them take over racing. They're such good people, and they have so many good causes. I just wish they'd spend their time and money on that instead of chasing Lasix.
Well put. The elements of the roundtable that you also stressed, and you kind of tied the piece mid-month to the closing day piece, in terms of racing's product and the offerings and the way in which the race day is structured, the amount of races. We've talked and you've complained for ages about the certain rules and the way certain things are kind of tone deaf to the better. Then there's, of course, some of the takeout topics that continue to have a certain awareness level, even at management levels, and yet there still doesn't appear to be any kind of a wave or growing rollback of takeout industry-wide in response to what is already proven to be a successful formula for stimulating wagering. Talk a little bit about those topics.
Well, what I thought was one of the more interesting addresses at the roundtable was Martin Panza's about the volume of racing that we have. Now, 3 weeks later, when it got to be closing weekend and NYRA was trying to hit some numbers, we started seeing 12 race cards again. So, they preached a little better than they practiced. But, his point was that the days of the 12, 13, 14 race cards are over, and that we have to be realistic about the full crop and the racing population, and stop trying to just, turn people on their heads and shake out their pockets until there's no money left with these marathon cards that the racing just doesn't really support.
And in terms of takeout, Steve, in your days as an executive, and of course, if we go back to earlier in the month, we also had, the AG report that finally was released and managed to be treated as if it was news to somebody. But in terms of takeout and a cohesive, coherent approach industry-wide, what do you think could be accomplished, and at what point is it going to get addressed on a more widespread basis by track managements?
Well, I think they're going to have to see some successful experiments. First, let me make the point that racetracks do not sit around scheming. Let's raise the takeout. That'd be great for us. It's frequently determined by the state. In New York, you had people running NYRA for, 10 years who wanted the takeout to go down, but the state wouldn't let them. So, it's not always a matter of what track executives do or don't want to do. But I think to, win over the hearts and minds of people who are leery of lowering takeout, you've got to have some more successful experiments. And I think if everyone on both sides of the issue would calm down a little bit and say, let's try something at the next meeting. Let's try this bet at a reduced level. There's a good body of evidence so far that it's promising. But, when Madeline Auerbach at a CHRB meeting says, well, you know, if we change this, it'll hurt all the owners, and there won't be any purse money, and everyone will go broke. I mean, the only way to correct that kind of impression is to do something for 3 or 4 months and show people, gee, the volume increased enough to, make everybody whole. And we're going to need to see that. It doesn't do any good just to keep saying, lower the takeout, purses be damned, tracks be damned. It's not going to work that way.
Got to ask, before we talk about the potential for 5-day-a-week racing at Saratoga, I want to get your impressions there. I do want to remind everybody that may have missed it that around the time of the Hall of Fame, you wrote a really nice piece about Curlin and his absolute bona fides to be a Hall of Famer. And in the other column that was sort of a companion to the Curlin induction, you called for Steve Asmussen to get a fair rendering from voters and the deserved opportunity to make the Hall of Fame after he was very much unfairly yanked off the ballot. Jay Privman spoke out at the time that it was a knee-jerk reaction. Asmussen had a tremendous Saratoga, and his 2-year-olds are absolutely spectacular. And of course, Scott Blasi back as the head foreman. Talk about Asmussen and how you think this could be accomplished to give him a fair hearing as a Hall of Fame candidate.
Well, he absolutely should be back on the ballot next year, and I would hope that people, rather than continuing to react to a story that was sensationalistic but came to absolutely nothing, and he did nothing chargeable here. I mean, to me, he's an absolute no-brainer to put in the Hall of Fame. I mean, we don't have to recite his accomplishments. You can pretty much stop after Curlin and Rachel Alexandra. I mean, but he's in the top 5 in just about every lifetime category as a trainer. And, it becomes ridiculous not to have him in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry about the timing of the thing this year and that the museum people felt they had to take him off the ballot, but I think they should make it up to him very, very quickly.
And Steve, the postscript to the Triple Crown was at the time some sound and fury about changing the timing and the dates. That has absolutely been put away and completely waned. The sound and fury post-Saratoga appears to be a 8-week, 5-day-a-week racing calendar. Your thoughts?
I think it's absolute fiction. I really do. I mean, if you go back and trace this story, nobody at NYRA ever got up and said, we're considering an 8-week, 5-day-a-week meeting next year. Nobody has said that, and, it almost seems like there wasn't quite enough stuff for the upstate people to get all agitated about, but I don't see any movement toward doing that. I mean, would it be more pleasant for me if they raced 5 days a week? Sure. Does it really make sense for a destination resort where people want to go up there for a week's vacation and see as much racing as they can? I don't think particularly so. So I don't see what you gain, other than for the participants, an extra day off. I don't know what you accomplish by going to that, and I really don't anticipate it happening. I mean, the old Joe Palmer line, that a man who would change Saratoga would stir champagne, I think applies here. What's wrong with the meeting as it's currently constructed?
I never heard that one before. I like
that's
that.
a classic.
I like that. All right, Steve, I've got about a minute left, but just wanted to go back to one more of your columns. You talked about the Derby Preakness winner is almost always a lock for an eclipse. This year, things have shaken up a little bit. It would have been interesting also if either Wicked Strong or Totalist had won the Travers. I think they would have kind of been an outsider long shot maybe to be in that conversation. But Shared Belief with the win in the Pacific Classic is very interesting. Going forward the rest of the year, give us your ideas on the 3-year-old picture.
Oh, well, it's just fascinating because, as I said, it's been, in the last 45 years, every Derby Preakness winner has been the 3-year-old champion. You have to go back to, the days of Arts and Letters in '69 to find a horse, who didn't win the Derby who won the Derby in Preakness and wasn't the champion. And, that's because Majestic Prince never ran again. But, if Shared Belief runs the table, if he wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, and especially if he beats California Chrome in that race, I think we will have, for the first time in 45 years, a 3-year-old champion beating a Derby Preakness winner for that title. So it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, really will. Steve, we appreciate the visit, and we certainly appreciate hearing you up and around doing well. We missed you up at Saratoga, but we'll look for you in 2015, and we'll certainly talk to you before then.
Great. I look forward to it. Good to talk to you guys again.
All right, Steve Christ from the Daily Racing Forum. A little earlier, Jeremiah Engelhardt. A bang-up show to kick off the return to the studio.
Hey, now.
And that's going to wrap things up for Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. We're every Sunday from 10 until 11. Don't forget, questions, comments, suggestions, looseonthelead@yahoo.com. We would love to hear from you. Looseonthelead@yahoo.com. Visit also our Facebook page.
I actually better look at the email box because I
haven't looked in a while.
Saratoga. No. So if any of you wrote to us during Saratoga, I promise we will get back to you. And,
when you wanted that tip on the 4th and the August 18th,
sorry, but
right.
no, I promise we will catch up.
We're going to wrap things up for this week. Again, we're here every Sunday morning from 10 until 11 a.m. Enjoy the races this afternoon. Cash a few tickets. We'll see you next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.